promoting female leadership. The need for women organizations such as IAWL and GBA Women's Forum to be torchbearers in the promotion of female leadership. We'll also be discussing strategies for getting more women to be in leadership positions and encouraging more women to aim at occupying leadership positions. We'll also discuss strategies for getting women to remain in leadership and to ensure successful succession in female leadership. We are also going to look at the role of male allies in promoting and facilitating women in leadership. Today, we are blessed to have distinguished panelists who are seasoned and very experienced leaders in the legal profession. So first of all, we have Madame Linda Kasonde. She is the first female president of the Law Society of Zambia. We also have with us today Madame Marietta Brew. She is the chairperson of, Madame Marietta Brew. She is the chairperson of the African Women Lawyers Association, IAWL-GBAWF, the Ghana chapter. I cannot help but add that she is a former Attorney General of Ghana. Then we also have with us today, Mrs. Sheila Minka-Premo. She is the president of the Ghana Bar Association Women's Forum. And she's also the managing partner of ALC Law Consult in Accra. We also have with us Mrs. Victoria Ba. She is the managing partner of Senna Chambers, Accra. So as you can see, we have very seasoned and experienced women in the legal profession as our panel members today. So we will start with a panel discussion, which will take 30 minutes. During that time, there'll be questions and answers for the panel members. After that, we'll open up for questions and answers from members of the audience for 20 minutes, and then there'll be closing remarks. Okay? So I've mentioned the names of the panel members. I'll go through the names again, and when I mention your name, please just give us a wave, and then you know that's you. So as I said before, we have Madame Linda Kasonde. Can you just give us a wave? Oh, panel members, please unmute. Okay, and then we have Mrs. Victoria Ba, Senate Chambers. Give us a wave, please. Then we have Marietta A. Brew. Please give us a wave. And then we have Sheila Minka-Premo. Give us a wave, please. Okay, so you're all welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to be our panel members for this discussion. So the first question is a question for all panel members. So we'll start with Victoria. So the question is, what does leadership mean to you? And what does it take for women to position themselves in leadership positions? So what does leadership mean to you? And what does it take for a woman to position herself well in leadership? So Victoria, over to you.
Thank you for the question. Leadership to me means being an example in whatever sphere of my life and wherever I find myself. It means doing the right thing so that others who are observing me will be inspired to follow that example. It means taking initiative and being proactive where the situation requires that something be done, not just waiting to be led. Simply put, making a difference, no matter the role you are performing or whether you have a title or not. So simply put, that is my definition of what leadership means to me. Positioning yourself as a leader, and I know you said as a woman leader, but I like to come at it generally as one positioning themselves as a leader before I even look at the gender factor. One, I would assess my strengths and weaknesses or gaps. I would also, and that means that knowing what I'm good at and excelling at it so that I can set myself apart from the crowd, knowing what I need to improve upon so that I can become a better competition for whoever else is aspiring for the leadership role that I'm looking at. Building my network and reputation. I mean, if you're going to stand out, you must have a reputation. That starts with being competent at whatever it is you're doing. And you have to have good relationships or relations with the people that you meet, because you never know who will open a door for you or who will connect you to a leadership opportunity. And even to be in leadership and be effective, you need to have good human relations. Then you have to actively seek opportunities and challenges. And some of them are not going to manifest, in a glamorous leadership role, but you have to have the desire to serve and to make yourself available to make a change where opportunities present themselves. You have to communicate your aspirations and your achievements. And that's one thing that I individually have a difficulty doing. It's one of the gaps that I have found, which I'm working on, because we have this sense of, and I find that that is typical of women in particular, not, touting ourselves or blowing our own horn, So one of the things I'm learning, which is also about positioning myself as a leader, is letting people know what I aspire to, what I am gunning for, and what my achievements so far are. And that's not just putting it on a resume, but as you network, as you share your experiences and your knowledge, these things come out more clearly. Learning from others, because no one person is the repository of all knowledge. And you improve yourself by associating with people who have also filled leadership roles or are currently impacting society or their community in a leadership role. And then learning to adapt and evolve. And that's something that we do very well as women. I mean, we juggle roles, we are always multitasking, we deal with different environmental situations, both within our work environment and without. And so you have to be able to roll with the times and situations as they change. So finally, to tie it all in, as a woman, what are my strengths because of my gender? We tend to be, and this may be debatable, but I think that women are usually more emotionally intelligent than their male counterparts. We are collaborative, you can turn what appears to be a stereotype around to your advantage. Sometimes because you are considered as the deficit, so the optics don't look good, they want a woman. That's not a good reason to be looking for a leader, but work it to your advantage. And when you get into that space, distinguish yourself so that it becomes more desirable to have more women in that position. So I have approached it as an individual looking to lead and not necessarily being a woman looking to lead, but being conscious of the challenges or the drawbacks for women. My goal has also been to be an example and to lift up others, to make sure that I'm not walking that journey alone. And so if I find myself in a position, how many more women can I inspire or bring along to put in that place? I hope I've answered the question substantially.
Thank you very much, Victoria. So our next is Linda. So Linda, question is, what does leadership mean to you? And what does it take for women to position themselves well in leadership?
Thank you for that question. And firstly, I'd just like to say to Victoria, I hope you don't mind if I call you that I thought that your explanation of what a leader is fantastic. And I subscribe to all the things she said. In addition, I'd like to say that for my brief definition is that leadership is the ability to lead and influence people towards a certain direction. And let me hasten to add that there's a difference between being in authority and being a leader. So for me, being an authority can simply be steering the ship. But leadership is a skill which will allow you to steer the ship well in choppy waters and deliver that ship to the promised land. So for me, that is the distinction. And also, I would say there's a difference between somebody who just does what the people want and being a leader. Because sometimes you have to take your flock through uncomfortable and difficult times that they may not even want to go through, but you need to encourage them along the way and make them see that there's a reason why we're going in this direction, and it's for the good of the collective. So I think to position oneself for leadership, and I do think it's different for women. Firstly, you need to be prepared because you're judged far more harshly by those who may be your critics or those who you're trying to persuade, especially as we live in patriarchal societies. There's an assumption that women are less competent and capable than the men folk. So first you have to, lay the ground and show what you're capable of doing. You need to be a good communicator because you need to be able to persuade people in terms of what you're about, what you can deliver, how you can work well with other people. So communication is a very important skill as well. You need to be strategic. And let me say that this is not being devious or scheming. Unfortunately, as I said earlier, it is more difficult for women to become leaders. So you need to assess the environment. You need to be able to identify who you can work with to champion your causes. And those may be men and women, and I recommend both. You need to be able to assess your own skills and where you need to be supported, where you are lacking in terms of your own personal skills. So definitely self-assessment and self-awareness is also very important. And I think especially for women, you need to be deliberate. Actually, I think this is for all leaders because too often people stumble into these roles and then they don't know how to manage the situation. Whereas if you're deliberate, you've decided this is what you want to do, and you know the direction you want to pursue, and it's clear to not just you but your followers. And lastly, you need to have a great team to work with and to support you along your journey, because firstly, I mean, there's a saying that a quotation that I like to quote from one of the former speakers of the US House of Congress. And he once said, it's easier to run for office than it is to run the office. And let me tell you, running for office is not easy. So that's just the first hurdle. Once you get in there, you need to be very tactical about how you go about doing what you want to do. And then I would say that, and perhaps I should have said this first, deciding to be a leader, as they say, is probably the first you need to take what they call an undemocratic step in choosing yourself. You say to yourself, I think I have the ability. I think I can do this job. I think I have a vision for this organization. And so you choose yourself. Of course, you consult other people to see whether they think you have what it takes to be a good leader. But ultimately, that choice must be made by you. And let me say, it must also be made in good time, because more often than not, the people who you're trying to get to vote for you need to be persuaded that you are the right person for the job. And as I said, the hurdles are far more for women than they are for men. So give yourself enough time to prepare the road, to bring your followers with you, and to persuade people to vote for you. So I think I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. So now the question is for Sheila. What does leadership mean to you? And what does it take for a woman to position herself well in leadership? Over to you, Sheila.
Thank you
Sheila,
very
please,
much.
Good.
Yeah, thank you very much. And greetings to participants and to the panel. I think a lot has already been said. Victoria has said a lot, and I think Linda has added on some additional information as well. So what I would like to add is what leadership is, basically you are the ultimate decision maker. That's something to do with leadership and ability to take responsibility for decisions taking. For it's already been indicated that you have to set a very good example in terms of the team that you intend to lead. You're responsible for planning, monitoring, evaluation, and basically leading the team that you have the responsibility for. In terms of how to position yourself, first of all, you should first be interested in either the work or the course that you need to follow. So it's very important to have an interest, and of course, you need to be competent. Sometimes when we're talking about leadership, people, when trying to push women into leadership, there's always this talk about, oh, we want to lower the bar and get women to get into leadership when they are not fully qualified. I do a lot of lobbying, to push for women's leadership. But what I always tell people is that we are looking for people who are, qualified. They should have all the qualifications and the competence for the particular job or course they are taking up. So you need to position yourself. If you want to position yourself, you also need to be very well organized, because we live in a patriarchal world, which has already been indicated. You need to usually organize yourself, be able to organize yourself in such a way that you are on top of both the work that you intend to do, as well as other things you're also responsible for. And you need to set a good example, You need to, as a leader yourself, you should be able to work yourself to contribute to whatever the course is. Mention has already been made about good communication, being very strategic, and then knowing yourself. Self-evaluation is really important in positioning yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? So that you know what to do to fill what gaps that you have. So I think a lot has already been said. So that's what I'd add to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheila. Thank you very much. Now the question is to you, Marietta. What does leadership mean to you? And what does it take for women to position themselves well in leadership?
Well, I think it's all been said, so I'll be brief. For me, leadership is about inspiring, encouraging, guiding, and influencing the people who you lead. And you lead them in that manner for a common goal. And that common goal is not usually for your benefit, but for the benefits of a community that you serve or a community that you lead. And so it's important that you, as a leader, you are guiding, you are influencing, you are encouraging, and you are taking decisions on behalf of the group for a common good. Now, there are many ways of positioning yourself, and a lot of it has been said already. But for the young lawyers, one thing I would say is that to position yourself for leadership in the future, one of the things you should do is build your confidence and your self-esteem. You realize that a lot of young women do not have that confidence and self-esteem, and there are techniques for building that which you can learn. Once you build your confidence and your self-esteem, a lot of other qualities come with it. You learn how to communicate effectively. You know how to take snap decisions for the group that you lead. You know how to manage volatile situations. So as soon as you build that confidence and self-esteem, these other qualities come with it. And let me give an example. It may not be a popular one, but I'll give it, especially for my colleague lawyers from Ghana. All our 3 female chief justices went to one particular girls' secondary school. The first female running mate of a major political party also came from that school. Now, it's not as if the school is one of the best girls' schools in Ghana, but it's not as if they are equally good. They are not equally good schools. There are very good girls' schools. But one thing, after interacting with girls from that particular secondary school, I noticed is the confidence that they have. And it distinguishes them from those of us who went to other schools. So I think that one of the most important qualities you need to get is confidence in yourself and to build your self-esteem. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marietta. Thank you very much. You've all spoken very well, and it's important for all of us as women to know what leadership means to us, but not only know what it means to us, but to position ourselves well. That is very important. So especially for those who are young in the legal career, these are issues which you need to consider very well. What does leadership mean to you? And how can you position yourself well for leadership in the legal profession? So we'll go on. We have a few more questions for our panelists. And the first question goes to Linda. So Linda, as the first female president of the Law Society of Zambia, could you share with us your personal experience on what it took you to break the glass ceiling as the first woman president of the Law Society of Zambia? So Linda, we would like to hear about your experience, because we know there was definitely a glass ceiling which had to be broken. You managed to break it. Tell us all about it and give us words of encouragement, especially to the younger ones who are now coming up.
Thank you. So when I gave my points for positioning oneself to become the leader of a bar association, one of the things I said is that you need to be deliberate. And for sure, I was not an accidental leader. My journey towards the top of the bar association began a good 5 or 6 years in advance. I loved doing the work under the Law Association of Zambia. For me, it fulfilled my sense of social justice. Of course, I was interested in particular areas like constitutional law, administrative law. And I started off volunteering on the various committees. And then I worked my way up to head of committee, then took a council position, then became honorary secretary, then became vice president, and finally president. So it was something that I planned. And in fact, I had put it on my vision board a good 5, 6 years in advance, but that's what I wanted to do. So it was an ambition of mine, but I would like to say it was not a selfish ambition. I really, truly believed that I could use that position for the betterment of society, because the Law Association of Zambia has a mandate not only to regulate the legal profession in our country, but we also have a statutory mandate to promote human rights, the rule of law, social justice, constitutionalism in our country. So the nation looks towards us for guidance on national legal issues. And for me, that was especially where my passions lay. And I think the other thing I would say is that fail fast. And what do I mean by that? So I think for women, we're particularly risk averse. We're sort of raised not to want to fail or to be humiliated in public. And so we're so careful about how we do things. And I think for you to aspire to top leadership positions, you need to have a certain level of risk appetite. If you really want to lead as opposed to just steer the ship, make a difference, leave a legacy, because that might require doing certain things that are unexpected, unusual, and things that might change your country for the better. So I would say get your experience in the Bar Association as you go up the rung, and allow yourself to fail along the way so that it's not a shock when you're at the top and something is going wrong. As I think it was Victoria said, you need to have the ability to adapt. So you're in trouble now. What do you need to do to course correct and to get things back right on course? So the other thing I would say is communication was extremely important. And I'll say that when it was time to campaign for the position of president, I knew I had to run an extraordinary campaign because there was no one else who'd done it before me. And to break that glass ceiling, I needed to put across a value proposition that was attractive. And for me, I did it through media engagements. I participated a lot in the events of the association. I got to know the membership. And by that time, I knew most members by name. So there was a personal connection with the membership. And I had, like I said, risen through the ranks. So it was a very deliberate effort, but not in a selfish way. And to be honest with you, I was misunderstood as being too ambitious. I mean, someone told my campaign team that she's so ambitious. Why does she want to be a named partner and president? As if you can't have both. So it's a very difficult journey. But as I said earlier, it's actually easier to run for office than it is to run the office. And I'm sure we'll get into that at a later stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. Thank you. And as you've said, you were very deliberate. You didn't just wake up one day and say, I want to be the president of the Law Society. But there was a ladder on which you climbed. You served, you occupied various positions, you were good at communications, when human relations as well. This is what I see, because you said you knew most of them by name. It was very deliberate. So well done. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. And I think we've all learned a lot from what you've shared. Thank you. So the next question is to Marietta. So Marietta, given your diverse legal career trajectory, what are the key essentials to advancing women's leadership in the legal profession?
Well, thank you very much. It's an interesting question. I believe that as women lawyers, most of us have the capacity and ability to lead. But as the previous speaker said, you must be deliberate about it. But I'll highlight just 4 key points that I think would be helpful to your listeners. And I think the first one was touched on by Victoria, that is pursuing excellence. Already as a woman, people are looking at you and asking whether can she do it or can she not. They already think you cannot. That's what's in their mind, that, oh, she's just a woman. But you and I know that we can do it, and even better than most men. So in every job that you find yourself, every task that you are assigned, you must pursue excellence. It's the only way you stand out. Even if it is a pro bono job you've got, do it to the best of your ability. Give it your best effort. And I like giving examples. Of course, I mean, you must, like you said, you must be deliberate about it. I'll give an example from my own life, not about myself, but about a colleague. I remember when I was a minister, and a colleague called me and said, oh, Marietta, there's this young lady I mentor. She worked at the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, and she's just finished law school. Can she come and do pupillage at the Attorney General's chambers? I said, oh, why not? Just speak to the Solicitor General. She can do her pupillage with us. Then I got another call from a professor in the law faculty who also said, Marisa, there's this young lady who I know. She's quite good. Can she come and do her pupillage? And it was the same young lady who he mentioned. So that got me very interested. Obviously, this young lady, something was distinct about her. So when she came to the ministry, I asked them to bring her straight to my chambers because I was interested in what qualities that these 2 people who I respected so much had both mentioned her name. And to cut a long story short, even when I left the ministry, I brought her with me to my chambers, and she's a very senior member of my firm. And that's because she pursued excellence. And if you are excellent, you will stand out. The second point is to pursue continuous learning, not just in school, but in your profession or in your job. A lot of our young lawyers find themselves in the corporate world, especially in Ghana. Now, quite a number in private practice, but a lot of them are in corporate world, manufacturing, mining, oil and gas, transportation. Try and deepen your knowledge of the industry in which you work in. And because it's not just about the law. If you're in oil and gas, there's also the technical aspect. Please deepen your knowledge about the technical aspect as well. Currently, the director of port, that's at the Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority, for example, is a lawyer. She graduated as a young lawyer, worked at the Ports and Harbour for a while, and she was deliberate about it, not just about learning the law, but learning about the technical aspects as well. And that is why she's the director of Port, Tema. And that's a very technical thing. And the same can be said about the oil and gas industry at the National Petroleum Company. The one in charge of all regulatory and requirements, regulatory compliance, everything about the industry was headed by a woman. Of course, she was deliberate. She didn't just learn, a woman lawyer. She didn't just learn the law, she learned the technical aspect. So don't limit yourself to learning just the law in your various sectors. Learn about the technical aspects. If your employers will pay for it, that's good. But if your employers are not going to pay for it, please give up that shoe and bag and pay for a course in the sector, and it will do you a lot of good. We've talked about networks. The third point is building a strong network. So our previous speaker talked about being deliberate about it, being active in the bar. So if you want to be the leader of the bar, you have to be active. Not you won't just spring out of the blue and become the bar president. She was deliberate, she worked, and she was elected. It's the same way if you are in, for example, politics. People might think that out of the blue you've been given a political position, but most people work towards it. You work in the background, you work at the forefront, you build a professional network in that particular political party that you belong to. If you want to stand out as an arbitrator, there are networks that you need to be part of, and you become identified as one of the female arbitrators or leading female arbitrators to go to. And Bath has done that. Victoria Bath has done that very, very well. And then finally, this one is a personal, well, not a personal, but on a personal level for all of us. Most of us want to build careers and then, of course, have a healthy family life as well, because many of us are married, have children, and there's no reason why you can't have a good career and be a leader and have a healthy family as well. For those of us, from my personal experience and for my colleagues and friends, realize that all of us need help at home. So if you need help at home, please get that help at home so that you can also develop a great career. If you need a nanny, get one. If you need a cook, get one. That's if you can afford it. And I'm hoping that some of you can afford it, but you start in little bits. Some of us, for example, started, when I started my practice, I had to bring my grandmother to come and live with me to help me at home. And she did that so well for me. So there are different ways of doing it, but you will need help. We call ourselves superwomen, but in truth, we are human. You fall ill, you get tired, you become stressed, so you will need help. So those are the 4 things. Pursue excellence, pursue continuous learning, build a strong network, and then if you need help at home, get help at home so that you can also develop your career. Thank you. I hope I didn't speak for too long.
No, you didn't. Thank you very much, Marietta. That was great. I really like the part about this young girl who was recommended by 2 people. And she came, she excelled, and now she's working with you. And we can see that she is on a good path to leadership. So yes. I like that bit. I liked everything that you said, but that one in particular marked me. So for the young people who are listening, learn from this example of this young lady who excelled in school. She worked, she did her pupillage, she did very well, she stood out, and now she's working with Marietta. It's a very good testimony. Thank you so much, Marietta. So the next question is to Victoria. So Victoria, what factors contribute to women's decision not to take leadership positions? Very often we find that women have a backseat. The elections, the women aren't concerned. They think, oh, let's leave it to the men. Victoria, tell us, what factors do you think contribute to that? Why women would not want to be leaders? They'll just sit back and say, well, it's the men who have to do it. What are some of the factors?
I would list them off and then flesh them out. So one is self-doubt, which I myself have been a victim of for many years, but by the grace of God, I'm breaking that mold. Gender stereotypes, how we're socialized, and the other would be sacrifice, which Ms. Brew has touched upon about work-life balance, the various responsibilities that women have. So I think self-doubt was something that I thought for years was unique to myself and my own self-confidence, which is another thing that has been mentioned. But increasingly, I realized, and in fact, I found that it has another name, imposter syndrome, that amongst women, no matter how competent and capable we are, we need someone actually to come along and tell us that we are deserving of the roles that we are aspiring to, assume. And it has to do with a subconscious, from the way we are raised, the dreams we are conscientized to dream, and typically, let me get personal here. When I got married, I thought, it made sense to make sure that my husband would progress and take on higher roles because he has to earn more. And depending on your family setting, that may not necessarily be a bad thing. But I realized that I was limiting myself. There was nothing that meant that I couldn't also aspire to be the one bringing in more money, and that would not harm our relationship per se. By the grace of God, I've woken up. And thankfully, he is also part of my support base. I mean, Linda talked about having a support base. When you don't have that support base, sometimes you have women who have the confidence and the capacity to take on leadership roles, but their circumstances just mean that they cannot because something has to give. So one needs to have a reorientation, a mindset that says that, when I see a job advertisement or a leadership position, I don't have to tick every box of what I consider a qualification, because research has shown that men typically would go for positions even when they have just 60% of the qualifications, but women would want to ensure that they qualify 100% before we take the step. It is a good thing, but it works against us. So self-doubt is one of the things. Secondly, and more importantly, I don't think it's even so much of a decision not to pursue leadership positions, but we are wired so that we select ourselves out of going for those leadership positions. And sometimes it's, again, the financial capacity, because you want to go for a position that requires you to go around, lobby, and convince people. Sometimes you don't even have the wherewithal. And typically, by the social construct, your male counterpart may have that easily. So we convince ourselves that, oh, it's going to be a man anyway. I mean, go to the Ghana Bar Association Secretariat and go into the conference room, and all the pictures on the wall from the first president to date is that of a man. So when you have a shortage of examples of what women can aspire to, that also becomes a hindrance, because you don't see a picture or a role model of the kind of somebody who has done what you're aspiring to. So that is also a hindrance that one has to look at. And it starts with us, you know, our generation and how we're raising our children, especially the female child, where, you know, even in the things that they are accustomed to playing with, we program them to fit the role of a support person, but not the main character. So a lot has to be done in our own orientation and how we are mentoring and raising the next generation of women to know that it's okay to go for it. And I really like what Linda said about the fear of failure, the fear of being humiliated. We take it very hard as women when we go and contest for a position and we lose. But I think we have to become used to that feeling and just roll with it and rise and bounce back and go for it again. It's a revelation that I've caught from this meeting, and it's something that I'm going to add to my new learnings. I mean, being all right with failing and trying again. So self-doubt, sacrificing time with family, and gender stereotypes, I would say, are the main things. And the way we break that mold is to ensure, for instance, that in our workplaces, how are we fostering? So, for instance, I happen to be a managing partner in my firm. How am I fostering a work environment that encourages and makes it possible for women to take up leadership roles within and without the firm? I always say that I've had a Cinderella story in how I've risen to where I am, because I've had solid male allies. First of all, even in recruiting, they did not wait for the women to approach. They had a deliberate approach of identifying strong female candidates. And that's something that one has to look at. I know you didn't ask me for recommendations. Sorry, I'm going on that tangent. But I've had male senior partners, male bosses who have pushed me into every leadership position that I have taken. I'm currently head of faculty for advocacy and legal ethics at the law school because my former managing partner saw something in me, decided to carry me along as his teaching assistant, and somehow I ended up in that role. Even for every position that I may not see, which I qualify for, you have these male allies coming and say, I'm putting you up for this, or put yourself up for that. So we need that, whilst we also reorient ourselves and break those social modes and tell ourselves that we are good enough and it's okay to fail. And we also have to start making the difference where we work, because there's nothing worse than seeing a woman who puts down other women and retards their progress, especially where they see that that other person has a higher competence than they do. I have come to learn that when you surround yourself with intelligent people, they make you stronger, they make you look more intelligent, and you are better for it as a team and as an individual. So let me stop here before I preach.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Thank you. And I like the first points that you raised. It was about self-doubt. And very often as women, that is our problem. We think everybody else is better than us. Sometimes we even think that other women are better than us and we don't even want to try. You see, but I think that was a very important. Self-doubt. We need to be confident in ourselves. And we need to listen to other people too who tell us that you have these qualities. Why don't you apply? And I like that very much, Victoria, that you work in a firm where your male leaders pushed you. Very, very important. So thank you very much, Victoria. Thank you very much. So the next question is for Sheila. So Sheila, pushing women up the leadership ladder also requires the input of individuals and institutional sponsors, such as the Ghana Bar Association Women's Forum and the Institute of African Women in Law. Could you tell us, in your opinion, what these sponsors could do to push more women into leadership positions? So how do organizations, including the Ghana Bar Association Women's Forum and the Institute of African Women in Law, how can they push more women into leadership positions? And So Sheila, that is for you, the role of organizations and institutions in pushing women lawyers in leadership.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that, pushing women up the leadership ladder has to be an intentional decision. It just doesn't come because, as you've already heard, the way we are socialized, it is as if the headship of men is a thing which most of us kind of seem to see as we grow up, etc. So as far as the Women's Forum, as far as the Bar Association is concerned, pushing women up the ladder has to be an intentional decision, and we have to have a plan to get it done. For me, when I became a lawyer, in 1989, one of the groups that sort of opened my eyes a lot was the International Federation of Women Lawyers. That is a women lawyers group that had been set up, to pursue what I'll say gender justice. They opened my eyes up a lot to what could be done to try to help women in leadership. So one of the things they did, apart from, some of us volunteered for a while with FIDA Ghana, and when opportunity came for some kind of higher education through one of the development partners, FIDA Ghana really encouraged a number of women lawyers to go for, it was a master's program and this thing in the US. And that ended up with a number of women who were trained in what we call women's law and public policy. And they've really made a difference when it comes to the gender justice landscape in Ghana. So that's one way in which you can be intentional, making sure that you identify those who are interested and qualified to get sort of specialized training to enable them to get into positions where they can help better. At the Bar Association, as an institution, which we all belong to, I believe that one of the ways in which they have also tried was in accepting to institutionalize the Women's Forum of the Bar. The Bar Association has been in place for quite a while. And both men and women got qualified at the bar. I mean, at a point, we had more men. With time, we have an increasing number of women lawyers also coming up. So some of us who had the opportunity to serve in some of the committees at the bar indicated that, look, in many countries, they have what we call some kind of a women's division who try to look out for the interests of women. Because all lawyers, majority of lawyers, as I said, are male. Yes, there are quite a number of women now coming up. But for a while, nobody had really taken time to look at the interests of the women at the bar. So with a bit of lobbying, it was accepted to integrate and have what they call the Women's Forum at the bar, whose main key role is to look out for the interests of women lawyers, sort of, generally. But we need to move at the next step. The next step is to do what we can to ensure that women also are able to be in more decision-making positions, first at the various places where they work, as well as within the bar. Currently, at the council of the bar, first of all, I think it's Victoria. Somebody mentioned the fact that if you go to the Bar Association, the conference room is all men who have been leaders. So one of the things we've been talking about is how do we also ensure that we have more leaders in places where decisions are taken, which affects us all. Yes, the Women's Forum is there, but the Women's Forum cannot exist in isolation. We need to make sure that women are also in key decision-making places. As the president of the Women's Forum, I'm at the Bar Council, and I realized that at the regional bar, it is the president and the secretary who get to represent their regions at the Bar Council. Currently, there's no woman president and there's no woman secretary. They are all males. The only other females at the Bar Council, we have the assistant PRO, the assistant national secretary are females plus myself. And I think that the picture needs to change. So at this level too, you need to be very intentional about strategizing. A little research that I did showed that at most regions, a lot of the vice presidents are women. And I don't know whether it's a conspiracy to ensure that women, yes, they have some leadership at the regional bars, but it's at a place where they don't get to come to the Bar Council, where major decisions are taken, which affects all of us. So one of the steps the Women's Forum is doing with the support of the Institute of African Women in Law, which is a partner, is to consciously try to get more women into leadership positions at the bar, either through the various regions, through various committees that they serve on, etc., so that women also get to sit in decision-making places at the bar. And I believe that even this workshop is an example of one of the ways in which we want to raise awareness about this. Because if we are not in the key decision-making places, decisions are taken where we don't have much of an input in it, and then we complain where it happens. So it's all being very intentional and going about it. The other key thing which I also see was done at the institutional level is in the last review of the BAS constitution, they put in things which affects women at the bar. One of the key things which affects women at the bar is sexual harassment in the workplaces. There are various workplaces where women suffer sexual harassment. The bar for a while doesn't have any policy in trying to address it. Currently in the constitution, it's there. What we need to do is, having it there in the constitution is not enough. We also need to push to make sure that steps are taken to ensure that possibly all firms have policies to try to protect, particularly the young women at the bar who sometimes can be preyed on by some of the other people. So for me, the key thing is the various institutions being conscious about the need to ensure that there's gender justice within the institution, and then proper lobbying to ensure that there are policies, and when the policies are also in place, to ensure that they are implemented. And I believe that when women become aware that they need to be in spaces where, when decisions are taken, will affect them, so they can make an input into that, we can have more and more women at leadership positions at the bar. And apart from that, we're also intentionally also looking out for some women who we think are potential leaders and trying to encourage them to stand for various positions so that we can have an increase in women in leadership at the bar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheila. So Sheila has explained that apart from individuals, institutions also have a very important part to play in promoting women in leadership in the legal profession. Thank you very much, Sheila. So the next question is to all panelists, and we'll start with Victoria. Victoria, could you tell us the role, if any, that male allies play in nurturing women's rise to leadership? What other roles do you recommend for male allies toward advancing women in leadership in the legal profession? Victoria, I know you've already said quite a bit about the role of male allies in encouraging you in leadership, but I think maybe you can tell us a bit more about that.
All right. So I think we need more male allies, both within the work environment and also in the other areas of our lives. So I have been fortunate again. I have a male ally at home whose delight is to see my name going as high or as far as possible, especially since his name is part of it. But that's not the main motivation. And then also, I think really there are a lot of male allies whose support has not been exploited, or who do not even realize the impact that they can make in the rise of women to leadership, which will essentially benefit the whole of society, because our decisions will be more enriched. And it is about having a deliberate strategy where these men, not necessarily all in positions of influence, but they advocate and support women in assuming leadership positions, and also implement policies where they are in leadership, which facilitates women being able to take up leadership roles. It is about putting our names up, for assignments where they know that we have the capacity, not just because we want a woman. That alone is not enough. In fact, some women are put off when they know that they are being recruited just because they are a woman. We want a seat at the table because we are women, but we also want it because we know we are competent and we are capable of executing the role. So they can advocate for women in decision-making, put them up for high-profile assignments, and support their promotion to leadership positions. But there must be a deliberate strategy about doing this. And then also, they themselves breaking those stereotypes where, women are placed in a lower position and limited in terms of how they can rise, and making sure that they check that kind of orientation in the younger generation of men. There's a lot of education and awareness that has to be done, and we as women must champion that. Our male allies must also champion that. They must mentor young women or even older women as well, that they see can succeed them in some of the influential positions that they occupy. That is the blessing that I have been fortunate. But let me also make a quick point that in as much as I have been fortunate in who has become my ally, there was that fundamental thing of me, myself, doing the work that it required for them to have the confidence to even put my name up for something. So you can be surrounded by male allies, but where the substance is missing, where the competence is not there, where you are not material that can be put forward, then you undermine the whole purpose of that support and network. So I think that we need to educate. We need to see men not as a competition or as enemies, but our allies who can propel and work with us to get to where we want to go faster. And that is both in the family setting and in the work environment. And when I target men to work on my team, is to also make them ambassadors. And we have to endear ourselves to the extent possible so that they also enjoy having female bosses and leaders. Let me yield to someone else.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Very, very encouraging. So the question now is to Linda. Linda, could you tell us the role, if any, that male allies play in nurturing women's rise to leadership? What other role do you recommend for male allies towards advancing women in leadership in the legal profession? And we would like to hear about your personal experience with regard to male allies.
Okay, so male allies have played a very crucial role in my leadership journey, starting first of all with home, when I was raised by my father, who taught me and my sister, actually my siblings and I, that we could do anything we put our minds to. And then when I got into the workforce, my first and second bosses were men. And they were both extremely encouraging of my roles there. In my second job, I was promoted from partner very early at 31 and then, 30 and named partner at 31 because they saw something in me and had confidence in my ability. And just like Victoria is saying, excellence is the best answer to all your detractors. The other thing I would say is it's not just about using male allies to get you to where you want to go. When you get there, you need them to help you execute whatever it is your mandate is in your position. And I'll give you an example. When I was first elected as LAS president, Law Association of Zambia president, I noticed that when I was chairing meetings, some of the men, it's almost as if they didn't hear what I was saying, or they would sort of mansplain, or, so I developed a tactic. Going into a meeting, I would prepare. I would speak to some of the women who were friends of mine on the council, and I'd also speak to some of the men to reinforce what I was saying so that it appeared that what I was saying was sense. And eventually that wasn't necessary anymore because I was also proving myself in my position. But that is also very important and that is basically answers the second part of the question, is that you need male allies to help you in your role and they can be supported in so many ways. And I have to say that I think somebody in the comments said something about how sad it was that it's always the males that identify the talent in the women. I'm afraid that is just a factor of our socialization. Men are raised to be naturally confident. And so it takes a while for women to build that confidence muscle in themselves because it is not instilled in us from an early age. So that is why we need both genders to help each other in whatever we pursue. So I think I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Linda. I like the first statement that you made. Your first male ally was from your home. That was your father. I think that's excellent. And I think that is something which fathers need to take very seriously, and brothers, people who live, or guardians of young girls, because if from an early age you have a male ally telling you can do it, it's not impossible, encouraging you, not telling you what you cannot do, but what you can do, I think you're on a good path to leadership. So thank you very much. But that marked me very much that you had a male ally from home, even as a young girl. Thank you so much, Linda. So now the question is to Sheila. Sheila, could you tell us the role of, if any, that male allies play in nurturing women's rise to leadership? What other roles do you recommend for male allies toward advancing women in leadership in the legal profession? Yeah, Sheila.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think that male allies do have a role to play in advancing women's right to leadership at the bar. At the firm level, I mean, there are many firms now where you have females who have been promoted all the way and are now partners. Previously, when I started practice, there were very few of such. So opportunity has been given to women to lead at the firm level. Within the Bar Association, as I already indicated, we started this advocacy from like 2008, pushing to have space for women to also be given the opportunity to have, like a forum as you have in other or divisions as you have in many other countries. From 2014, at every bar conference, they'll give the women space to, meet, to talk about issues affecting women at the bar, etc. Until in 2022, it was put into the constitution. And for me, it took two, like I said, the Bar Council has been full of a lot of men. So it took two presidents then, Tony Forson's time, and then it was, I think, Tony Forson's time that it was put into the constitution as it was institutionalized. Between Tony Forson and then IAWL, I think he started it, and then the constitution was finalized during the IAWL's time. And so we have the Women's Forum as one of the institutions. In terms of what they can do to further improve women's leadership capacity, I would say that there should be room for training opportunities for younger female lawyers. I mean, they have this program where they do continuing legal education, etc. There are some to be targeted to train younger female lawyers, to equip them better, to get them ready also for leadership. They should also identify competent women who can fill some positions and really give space to them to fill such positions within the bar. I'm expecting that, with the regional elections, which is also pending or whatever, I expect to see more women, either as even regional presidents and also as secretaries, at least at the Bar Council, so that the room would have more women there to also take decisions. And then at the national level, I also expect to see more women. We're really hoping we could have the first female president in this time running. We've been doing some lobbying and behind the scenes work, but it may be very challenging. So we are also lobbying with them to ensure that some of the men who are standing for presidents, because we still haven't had a woman who is ready to stand for presidency yet, but we have lobbied, and some of the men who are standing for the presidency are made it very clear that they are going to make sure that they have female vice presidents running with them. And we are hoping that, so at least, even if we don't get the presidency now, get a vice presidency, and we are hoping that the vice president that we get will be groomed to become the next president, because we need to have a woman president at the back. I mean, in our population in this country, we have more women than men. And at the bar, if you go to most of the bar, the law schools, more and more women are being churned out as lawyers. So we will need to have a woman at the highest level, just as they've done in the Zambia. So we are hoping that in the next 4 to 5 years, we should have a woman at the bar. And it will take not just the Women's Forum, it will take male allies to get us there. So I'm counting and trusting them to help with to equipping, to intentionally make space to enable us to have women in leadership at the bar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheila. I like the part especially about the Ghana Bar Association and what male allies they are doing. At least they are pushing for vice president, but as you've said, we want to go beyond that, and we believe that very soon we should see not only vice presidents, but presidents, female presidents of our bar association. So now the question is to Marietta. So Marietta, could you tell us the role, if any, that male allies play in nurturing women's rise to leadership? What other roles do you recommend for male allies towards advancing women in leadership in the legal profession?
Okay. Well, male allies are very important, and that's because there are so many of them in the workforce. But for male allies, I probably wouldn't be speaking to you today. I might have reached the level I have, but it may have taken longer. Male allies were very supportive in getting me to where I am today. And I like what Linda said, because I saw that especially in my role as Attorney General, the fact that it's not just getting you there, but giving you the support that you need when you get to that leadership position. And for me, it was a critical factor in my doing 4 years as AG and achieving the modest achievements that I attained while I was in that office. So male allies are very important. There are several things that male allies can do. One, they should identify women with talent, women who excel, because it's not just about getting women there. And as Victor Abad said, being a managing partner of this firm, being Attorney General, was not just because I was a woman, but because I'd worked with my managing partner in the past. I'd worked with the former president in the past, and they were all aware of my abilities. They saw something, and that's why I was made managing partner, and I was also made AG. So identify women who work hard, who excel, who can do the job, because if it's just any woman and the person attains that position and does not excel, it sets us back a few years. But there are many women who excel, who can be identified to fill leadership roles. And I think it's also important for our male allies to publicly acknowledge and celebrate the achievements of women, because when they do that, it encourages other women as well. Not just our male allies, we as women also need to celebrate other women when they achieve or reach certain milestones, and let the younger ones or even our contemporaries recognize that this can be done. And another thing that male allies can do finally is they can help promote work-life balance for these women, especially if you're an employer. A colleague of mine said that he likes employing women because women work hard. All you need is to make sure that they have a work-life balance and they give you off their very, very best. And that is very true. I mean, if you encourage work-life balance for women who are still growing their family, still having babies, you get the best of them. So that's another way that male allies can encourage women into leadership position. Because very often you find out that some talented woman or some woman you expect to have attained a certain level, you don't see them again. You find out, where is this woman? You ask, and she's leading a very mediocre life. I mean, not to say that a mediocre life is bad, but but you'd expect her to get to the top. She hasn't, but because she didn't have that encouragement to balance her family life and her professional life to reach the highest level. So I believe that that's one of the things that male allies can do for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marietta. So we'll be going into our questions and answers time. Especially, this is where members of the audience are allowed to send us their questions, and then we'll do our best to answer. So we are launching the poll now. So please, if you have any questions, please send them to us, and then we will deal with them. So please send us your questions, okay? We are launching the poll now, send them. But as we are doing that, I just want each panel member to give us a takeaway in one sentence. Time is fast spent, so we don't have much time. So we can start with Victoria. One sentence, a takeaway for everybody who is part of this panel discussion, the audience, the panelists. Takeaway to motivate other women to keep pushing for leadership. If you can do that in one sentence, because we have.
All right. Be prepared, be available, support, motivate, and grow. That would be my one sentence.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Linda, can you give us a takeaway, please?
Thank you. So one of the things that hinders women often, I think it was mentioned in the brief of this webinar, is that so often we're only expected to reach vice presidential level and no more. Because if you try and aspire for a further office, a higher office, you're seen as overly ambitious, you're seen as selfish, you're seen as greedy. And I think that really needs to stop. We need to just say that it's also okay for women to be at the top levels, because representation does matter. And it's not just about the numbers. It's also about what that woman as an individual will bring to the table. And the reason why I always advocate for more women to come to the table is because each woman is different and has a different lived experience that they can bring to the table. So yes, having one is enough, is good, but having a balanced leadership is very important, because everybody will bring that experience and those viewpoints to the table. So I encourage more women to aim for the top, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Sheila, can you give us a takeaway, one sentence? Sheila, we can't hear you. Can you unmute, please?
Hello, can you
Yes.
hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
So women leaders need to be prepared and to strategize to gain access to spaces where decisions that affect them are taken. And in doing that, they should ensure that they lobby enough to be supported by both men and women to get there.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Marietta, takeaway.
My takeaway, I would say once there is a will, there is a way. And it takes preparing, it takes being excellent at what you do, and it takes building your confidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Marietta. So please, our time is fast spent, as I said before, but we will just give a few minutes for questions and answers from the audience. So do we have some questions? Our poll is still going on, but maybe you have some questions concerning what has been shared by the various panel members. So please feel free to send us your questions and we'll do our best to answer them. We have questions from members of the audience.
I saw something in the comments about 2 questions, but I'm not sure where they were posted.
Okay, I can see comments. I don't see. I don't see questions yet. Let's see. So there's a comment thanking us for this discussion. Are there questions?
There's a question. Let me read it out.
Okay, please read it out.
The person says, thank you for an amazing and insightful discussion. What is the best approach in identifying mentors and nurturing these relationships for career growth into leadership? So how do we identify mentors and nurture the relationship for career growth into leadership?
All right, so it's an open question for our panel members. It's an open question. An open question. Linda, would you like to give it a try?
Sure. So I had the privilege of setting up the first mentorship program in the Law Association of Zambia. And I think that, while things like mentorship programs and structured programs, mentorship programs are good, for me personally, through experience, the best mentorship relationships that I've had have grown organically through people I have known personally and have built relationships with. It's sometimes because there needs to be some kind of rapport or chemistry, if you like. You can't necessarily force a relationship to be fostered. So look around you, see who you know, first and foremost, or who you can closely interact with and maybe get to know over time. I think those are the best kinds of relationships. But I think women get stuck on only getting mentors. What we need more than anything as women are sponsors. And I had a really good sponsor at the Law Association of Zambia. He was a former president, and he identified my talent from the time I was on the committees of the Law Association of Zambia and encouraged me to climb the ladder and even told me when to be patient. So I am very grateful for that relationship that I had with that particular president, and it was instrumental in my journey. And so too, in my workplace, my male bosses were my sponsors. So let's look for sponsors who can take us to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So there's a second question as well. So please, can we repeat this? Can we have the second question?
Yes, second question. First, the person says, thank you to all these inspiring leaders for the presentations and experiences shared. The question is, I am interested in the topic on male allies. My question is, how do you address or deal with the men who disguise themselves as quote-unquote allies, when in fact they are not? I find this is a challenge for a lot of young women lawyers. Is there a way to overcome this challenge?
Okay, so second question, who would like to take that? Dealing with men
if I may.
who disguise themselves as male ally.
Yes,
Yes, Victoria.
I think for every fake male ally, there's a genuine one out there. And it is a question of disengaging from that relationship. You are not bound to have any specific type of or person as your ally. Look out. Sometimes they may not even be in your profession per se. But you see, this is where the networking thing and relationships become very important, because we live in a society where people are connected. They may sit on boards, they may play golf together, they may attend the same church. And so in your targeting, we're talking about being strategic. Open your eyes and look around you. Sometimes the fake people really won't even get you far. And if you find that they are fake, they are toxic, they have other ulterior motives, please move on. There are so many fish in the sea, and they don't have to be the president of Ghana, but they may be the president's friend or cousin. So widen your net and kick out the wrong material.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Well, if there are more questions, you may send them, but we may not be able to answer them right away because our time is fast spent. So in conclusion, I'd like to thank all our panel members for making time to share your experiences in leadership in the legal profession, and also for encouraging us to expand our leadership frontiers as women in law. And also would like to say thanks to all participants for your contributions and your participation. As we went through, I realized that more and more women were joining and other participants. Thank you so much for showing interest in this program. And we also want to say thank you to IAWL and GBA Women's Forum for this initiative, which is aimed at promoting women's leadership in the legal profession, and also for organizing such an important program. We look forward to participating in similar programs in the near future. So once again, thank you very much. And I believe this is, and Linda, we thank you for joining us all the way from Zambia. Wonderful. And we hope you'll be able to make time to join us again. And I just realized that she has a publication on her memoirs. I want to encourage us all to look for it and read it. I think that will inspire us all in our path in leadership. So once again, thank you all very much. And we look forward to having more such panel discussions with you. Thank you. And as I said, if you do have questions, you can still send them. We can't tackle them down because our time is fast spent. So thank you so much, Victoria. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Marietta. And thank you to all the organizers in IAWL and GBA Women's